Oh, I'd been for a walk along the beach and came home, and I put my kettle on to make tea. Teddy was going to come to my house for tea, and it's across the beach. She would have to walk across the beach to my house, and the earthquake, I'd been in my house for about 10 minutes and the earthquake happened, so I turned off my kettle and ran outside and held onto a tree and watched my house rock backwards and forwards and waited for the earthquake to stop.
Just first
turned off it's electric, not gas. Turned off anyway. Turned off. Yeah.
So did you notice it was earthquake quickly?
Yes.
Very quickly.
How about you?
I was finishing one email on my computer, and I said I was writing to my son, I said, "Oh, we're having an earthquake." And then it was too big, so I ran outside, and I could not stand, and I watched a tree doing this, moving back and forth, small tree. And I noticed how dry the ground was. I couldn't stand, so I was on my knees and feeling the dust. And it's funny what you remember. The ground was very, very dry. Dry. But when they started saying tsunami is coming, it was snowing. It started to snow, big snowflakes. But when I was on the ground, I kept calling for my husband because he was on the second floor of my house, and the house was making noise, lots of noise. But our houses are very old, but they stood.
My house is over 110 years old, and I could watch the house swaying almost. I couldn't believe it came up and then down from side to side. But it's because it's Japanese construction, the joints move in and out with each other, so the house just moved and came back and moved.
Wow,
Yeah.
It must be a very strong house.
Very strong old house.
My house is 100 years old this year, and it was the same. Shaking, 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 but nothing broke. All the windows opened in my house. My husband said, "Why did she open all the windows?" But the earthquake opened the windows. All the windows were opened this far. They jumped. Windows jumped off of the hook, and then they were sliding. But my husband said, "Why did she open all the windows?" But I didn't open the windows. Earthquake did.
Did you see tsunami?
Yes. After the earthquake, I went to see one neighbor is okay, and came back to my house and went upstairs to look any damage in my house and to find my dog. And I was upstairs in my house, and I could feel the vibration, and I turned and saw the tsunami coming, and below my house it destroyed fish packing factory and so many houses, so I ran downstairs and away from the cliff. But after we went back and watched, and next time the water went out, and so we could see nothing on no water. No water.
And
so
no damage, nothing. It pulled.
The water is gone. The sea is gone and snowing. So it's very bizarre feeling. And I think our body is flooded with adrenaline. So we have so much energy. It's very cold, but we can still watch and do maybe feeling is quite unique. Yeah. I remember thinking, I can do this. I understand it's a very dangerous situation. I could understand it's dangerous. But I remember thinking to myself, I can do this. So I am strong enough to do anything I need to survive. Maybe adrenaline in my body makes that strong feeling, I can do this. But at that time, we didn't understand how serious, how wide the area affected by the tsunami and by the earthquake. We didn't understand at the beginning how serious.
Because we had no radio, no television, no. But after the earthquake, soon the sirens started. Siren. What's the tsunami siren is different, but it was go to higher ground, tsunami is coming.
Warning.
The warning that a tsunami is coming. Wendy-san saw the tsunami, the first tsunami coming. We heard the tsunami. We could hear it with our ears. It's a very strange,
very noisy,
very awful sound. Sound of everything breaking. The whole when the water must have hit the buildings and everything breaking down. So we knew that the tsunami hit, and the whole time it was snowing so much. It was like blizzard, like in a snowstorm. And then we thought it's okay, we can go home now. So we went back to this cliff, and then that's the time we saw the same thing. The ocean was pulled all the way back, maybe 2 kilometers. It was very far back. So this was empty, nothing,
No
just
water.
sand, no water. We've never seen such a thing. So it was pulling all the way back. So we thought it's coming worse. Second time will be worse, we thought. So we went back to the high place because we didn't know what would happen. And while we were waiting in this place, of course, there are many, many, many earthquakes, right, Wendy-san? We had aftershocks over and over and over again. And someone said we should collect the snow.
So we got buckets, but we thought same thing.
Same thing.
So we collected the snow in buckets for water.
Not to drink.
Well, we didn't know any way of thinking we should collect water because,
for washing our hands or for toilet or for anything.
Soon we understood no electricity and no water, so we collect snow.
For daily use.
Yeah.
For daily use. And that snow water, on our side, the snow water lasted it lasted until April 6th.
April 6th.
So that was almost 1 month for us on our side of the hill. The snow water and rainwater that we collected from many buckets. But we were thankful for the snow, and because it was cold, then of course things did not spoil quickly, or our food was safe for a longer time. Because it was cold, and because there was no refrigerator, no freezer, so.
But natural fridge.
Natural fridge,
yes, right.
because it was cold in the daytime, and because there was snow on the ground.
So my refrigerator, my freezer, I had made ratatouille. And so for 2 weeks I ate ratatouille every day because gradually I just take out quickly and gradually it defrosts. So I ate every day and ate everything in my freezer. So they ate everything in their freezer. So I had. Sometimes I thought there will be a time no electricity. So I had around oil stove that has no fan, so a very traditional Japanese oil stove. So I had that. So I lived in my genkan. So I made that genkan warm. Only one place in my house I used that because I only have a limited amount of oil for my stove. So I boil the kettle and have water for drinking, and we learned to recycle water. So one water I use cooking and then washing my hands or washing my underwear, or anyway, they recycle water. And keeping warm was quite difficult. We made hot water bottle for bed, going to bed. So put water in the hot water bottle to keep warm at night. So it's because
and then
it's
use
very
the water again.
And then in the morning, the same water from the hot water bottle. Yeah. So every time thinking how to save water, and
water was very precious.
very precious. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Lots of wisdom
Yeah,
to survive.
yeah.
We should say that on Saturday morning, the morning after the tsunami, the Jietai came to check on us. And they said, can you survive here? Can you be okay in your house?
Didn't ask me that.
But they said, if you can stay here, it's better for you, because it was so crowded in the refugee centers. So if you have enough food, if you have what you need, please, it's better to try to stay here, because it would be so hard for us to go into tiny little refugee place.
I didn't. The Jietai didn't come to my house that time, but but the Jietai very impressive, because for the next few months, always they're walking, and checking the beach twice a day, because the tide is coming in and out. So they're looking to see for anything on the beach. So every time they're very kind, and are you okay, or something like that. So
they were very helpful.
yeah, we're very concerned, because members of Jietai are very young, and so very hard for them, I think. So they did a very good job.
Yeah, they really did. And our friend who was also with us on our hill, she had bottles of water to drink, but I did not have water prepared to drink.
Because you have house.
No, I mean, when the earthquake happened, of course I wasn't thinking about bottled water. We just drink water from the tap, from the faucet. So when the earthquake happened, my friend said, the other friend who was here, she said, I have many PET bottles of water. I will share with you. So she gave us water to drink. But I did not prepare water, and that was not a good thing. Did you? You had some prepared, right?
I had some water prepared for emergency, but now we always advise somebody, please keep large white container of water. We didn't have. I only had drinking water PET bottles, but now we ask our friends, please always have big containers of water also
for an emergency.
Emergency.
So the other lady did have water, so she could share with us. But then the man from your hill began to go to pick up water for all of us at the town.
When the Jietai had water tanks, we could get water from the Jietai. I had some PET bottles,
and we had
we're
some.
okay.
But in my house, if the other lady was not there, I would have had no drinking
Simple water.
Yeah,
Coke, juice.
Coke and juice, yeah. But just plain water. But then soon people began to bring us water. They came from Tokyo, and They would bring,
No,
not
no,
Chiatai, our
just-
friends.
Okay.
came.
Just wait, he's jumping ahead.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead of that day.
Okay.
but Water.
Yeah. Well, after the first week or so, people who own houses near us, other foreigners, Canadians or Americans, are very worried about us because we are alone, and so some people brought food for us, so some vegetable or sometimes water, but not water, more food items. Later, they came from Tokyo to bring some things for us. Yeah. But actually, we all had enough food.
Yeah, we did.
We did have enough food.
It was in the freezer or in our, we store.
And foreigners
some
tend to have more stored food anyway, so we had plenty of stored food.
That's a
Yeah.
big difference to survive.
Maybe, because we had, sometimes, we foreigners have a idea to keep food in the freezer because we come from a culture of preserving food. So we had lots of food in the freezer, lots of food, canned food. We had food in our house, so that was okay.
Anyway, I have no TV, so I never watch the news. But but we heard from from people who told us, and
I think the first
maybe
not problem, but in my family we have iPhone and someone had AU and I had Docomo. My Docomo phone worked through the earthquake, through the tsunami time. I could send a message, but I could send Gmail to my sister one of my sisters in America. That sister sent me a Gmail. You have disaster all on. She knew from American news that the tsunami was everywhere. And I said, about 7 o'clock that night, we were in our house, and I had a message from her. And I said, now, across the bay from our house, you could see the tanks blowing up over here, a big fire. Yep. So I said, now we have explosions across the bay.
That was very frightening.
Very.
Because we had earthquake and tsunami, and we went to bed, or maybe not to sleep, but anyway, no light, so we went to bed, and suddenly we could hear, I could hear, I was on, suddenly exploding, and I ran outside and I could see, we could see flames and on fire, so it feels like
now
I can't remember how I felt, but what happens next is
So when I said to my sister, I text to her, now we have explosions across the bay. But she said to me, that's not all you have. You have nuclear meltdown. So she told me on Friday night, there's nuclear meltdown in Fukushima. But I did not tell anyone. In my house there were 4 of us, and of course I could not contact Miyaji.
we have no contact.
We could not walk across, because this is all
Flooded.
washed away and flooded.
Flooded.
So my sister said, you have nuclear meltdown in Fukushima. So I thought, it's too heavy for everyone to hear tonight. So I didn't tell anyone. Intentionally, I didn't say until the next day, because it was too much news. Of course, the same for all Japanese people. But that night, the aftershocks were very, very bad. Earthquakes continually. Yes. So we didn't know, should we go outside again or stay in the house? Will the house fall down? But
So
you went out sometimes.
I went out so many times, but I dressed my clothes.
We stayed in our. We stayed in our
Everybody
clothes.
stayed in clothes.
That's all many
and
people
shoes,
had.
everything. first of all, we couldn't talk to anybody, so very difficult. So actually, I have one wonderful story. A number of good stories, people trying to contact me, but on the beginning of the week, Monday or Tuesday, somebody from Shichigahama, Yakaba, came to my door, and he brought 4 members from the British Embassy to find me. So I was very excited. So my son Naoki, who plays cricket, his cricket friend in Sendai had told the British Embassy staff in Sendai that there was a British lady living in Shichigahama. So they came to Shichigahama to the city town hall, and the man there knew me, so he brought them to my house, and they had satellite telephone, so I could telephone my son in London. I have a son at that time. One son lived in London, and my sister, and I could talk to them for a short time. So they came two more times to make sure, did I want to go back, did I want to leave, and there was a bus. I could take a bus and they would help me go back to London if I wanted to, but my home is Japan, so I want to stay here. So I said no. But having contact with my family in Japan was also very, very difficult because I didn't have a telephone. So one of my daughter's friend lives in Sendai, and he came to Shichigahama by car. He looked for me and we drove out of Shichigahama until I can use my phone. So I could talk to my daughter. So very, very hard not to talk to family. Most difficult thing for me. They know our situation, and so if before the tsunami, I was walking on the beach. So very fortunate that I'm okay and Teddy's okay. So we feel very blessed. So talking to our family is really, not talking to our family is very difficult. Yeah.
My daughter-in-law is from Australia. She was my son's girlfriend at the time. Now they are married, but her parents were very concerned, and they contacted the Australian embassy contacted my daughter-in-law, and they said, there is a bus for you to leave. Please leave. And she said, no, I cannot leave. I want to stay. So the Australian embassy was very, very good about checking on her every week. Every week. Are you okay? Where are you now? And they sent embassy people to find her and give her medicine about radiation, in case there was another problem in Fukushima. And then someone also tried to find if my husband was okay, because he's Canadian. And they called not just Canadian embassy, but someone called him from Ottawa, Canada. They found us and said, do you want to leave Japan? You can leave tomorrow morning or whatever, if you can get to Sendai. And he said, no, thank you. But Americans, there are too many Americans like me. No embassy called me. British embassy went to get Miyaji-san. They went to check. Ottawa called, and Australian embassy called, but not America. I think there are too many thousands of Americans. So if you are watching the video, if you're American, you better register with the American embassy. Because they don't know where everyone is.
They don't know?
I don't know. Maybe you have to register, right? You have to register your name with with your embassy. But of course, many Americans left, and American embassy tried to help, but they could not contact every single person. Maybe they know there are thousands and thousands of Americans in Sendai or in cities, but how to contact everyone. I don't think they know my telephone number, do they? I mean, unless the embassies
No, they
don't.
wouldn't unless
they
you
don't know
specifically
unless
say.
I tell them. Yeah. If I would register with American Embassy, I am living in this address and this is my phone number, then they will know. But I never did that, so.
There's a system where you can register with your home embassy, and although I wasn't registered at the time with the British Embassy, then I am now. So we always recommend any foreigner, please register with your foreign embassy, because if they can, they will help you in emergency situation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always felt at home here, and my husband's Japanese, and I have 6 children that are all Japanese, and I lived here for a long time, and my main house in Tochigi, I lived there for a long time, and my Japanese language is not very good, but I've always felt very comfortable here and very happy here. But after living through the tsunami, it's a very different level of belonging to Japan, really.
Feel more part.
We've lived through this together with everybody here, and our families have tried to help, and people here have helped us. And Teddy and I know so many more people now than we did before the tsunami. And many times somebody asks me, if you can live anywhere in the world, where would you live? I think Japan is definitely my home now.
Now Japan is your...
I always felt at home in Japan, but after the tsunami, it's a different feeling. It's much deeper and much more connected with. If you suffer with somebody, then you have a very deep connection with them.
I think the world thinks Japan is so amazing because of the way they could, what's the word? It's gaman, but how they worked so, they are so patient, and they were so orderly and so able to face the disaster together. On the 1 week after the tsunami, someone from another part of Sendai, our friend, came to take us, my husband and I and our son and his girlfriend, take us to Izumiku, which is north. North in Sendai.
North of Sendai.
But anyway, he could drive his car. He had gasoline to drive his car. But we could not take our car from here because the road dropped this far. The road dropped so it all around Japan in this area the roads dropped, but we could not drive out. Even if we had gasoline, we could not drive our car. So our friend came to pick us up. And in the car was a American man, who works for the American government for disaster and for another relief agency. He was coming to explore Japan about sending aid to Japan. And we were driving. It was my first time to be outside of this little place. And we were driving along, and many Japanese people were lined up by 7-Eleven or by convenience store to buy 5 things. And that man just came from Haiti. They had had disaster before. And he said, I am so shocked. I am so shocked. If this was Haiti, maybe people would fight or they would hurt each other. But it's amazing. I've never seen this, where Japanese people were so patient in the line to wait for their turn. The whole world watched Japan go through such incredible suffering and do it with such grace, so well. They did it so well. And I think, in the disaster in Tohoku especially, many people, if I gave you something, you would feel that you must give back to me. But at this time, people could not give back. There was nothing to give back. So it was like a wall dropped. This girigata, this heavy obligation to each other dropped. The wall was shattered, and people could be close friends. We did not, even between Japanese people, you could not worry about, you gave me something, I have to give you. That was gone. And people needed each other. So many people were touching each other or hugging each other, or, oh, you are living. You know, it was such a deep human experience. Even when we went back to our hair cutter 6 weeks, more than 6 weeks later, they hugged us. The Japanese people, they said, are you living? Oh, are you okay? There was no feeling of, oh, you're Gaijin or you're Nihonji. That we are human beings. And
so even the first time we saw the lady who works for delivery company, so she can't do her deliveries most time, Kuroneko lady, but the first time I saw her, I was walking on the road, and her little truck is coming, and she stopped her truck and jumped out of her truck and hugged, you're okay.
Oh, Miyaji-san,
so okay. That kind of thing happens so many times. Oh, you're okay.
No border.
No.
Just equal.
So just as a human, we need each other. So we have been thinking about your questions, and we think the most important is you must make friends. If you are a foreigner, you must make friends in your community, even 1 or 2 people. You must find people in Japan who can be your friend. And it's very important. It's an important thing. It was in the midst of the most horrible experience of our life, we found wonderful things. And I think all of our friends, all of our Japanese people would say that. Even though it was the worst thing you could imagine. You could never imagine such a terrible thing. But we have to say there are many good things that came out of this experience. Right?
Yeah,
we
definitely.
really think that. We spend a lot of time with older people in our volunteer group. And they often say, oh, if it wasn't for the tsunami, we wouldn't know each other. If it wasn't for tsunami, we wouldn't be doing these knitting, or we wouldn't be doing all the things that we do now. And you have to look forward. You have to think about, it's not all bad.
Most people in Japan know about preparing a bag with certain things and to have so many days of food and to prepare water. All those things are really important. And to have, for foreign people, they need to have a passport and their bank records. And somebody told me a photograph of their family members that live together is a good idea in a sealed envelope with waterproof envelope with money for the telephone, or those kinds of things that most Japanese people know about anyway. So those things we think are really important. Plus, registering at your embassy, those things are very important too. And as Teddy said, as we think about our situation, and I think about some of the foreign people that I know in Japan, one important thing is to know your neighbors and to be involved in the community. So sometimes for foreigners in Japan, we have Kairanban, what do you call Kairanban? What's the word?
System.
A system, Kairanban system that goes around to your neighbors. And for foreign people, that they think, oh, what is this? It's quite hard for them to understand what it means, and it's a bit sort of mendokusai to do that. But actually, it's a really good thing in an emergency situation, because everybody knows you in your group and you know everybody else. And so those contacts, I think, are really important. And it tells you where to go in an emergency. We lived on a hill. Actually, my cabin and Teddy's cabin, we were safe. But actually now, if I heard a tsunami warning again, I wouldn't stay in my house. It's 15 meters. The tsunami was 12 and my house is 15 meters. That's not very far. I would have gone higher. And when I was walking along the beach, I didn't know where the emergency steps were. So to be prepared, you should know where all these things are. So I think we would advise anybody to really to know where to go in an emergency. And the other thing that I also thought about is that somebody suggested this to me as well, to be really prepared mentally. So if you have this situation, you can think what to do and where to go and what are the most important things to be prepared for. So because these disasters happen, and although this is and they happen all over the world. So if you're prepared for a disaster in Japan, you're prepared for a disaster wherever you go. So the same things apply. And that's the other thing somebody suggested to me as well, is that in Tochigi I went to a fire station one time with my children that had a simulated room where you could experience an earthquake. And the fire department, they told you what to do in an earthquake. And those are all over the country. And so I think that's a very good thing to experience, to go and to know what to do. Because children are taught these things, but adults arriving in Japan, they're not taught these things. So as children, my children learned those things in school, Japanese children learn those things in school, but adults, we don't know about that kind of thing, getting under the table or standing in the door jamb, those kind of safety, practical things. We just don't learn those as adults. So I would advise somebody to go to the fire station and see if they do that kind of thing.
If you belong to a han, and if you are in a Japanese neighborhood, you have a hancho and you belong to a han. And that is really, even though people think it's mendokusai sometimes, it's really a very strong safety feature of living in Japan. You must know who your neighbors are, and they will know you, and they will check on you to be sure that you're okay. And it's important, I think, if you're a foreigner in Japan, to make relationships with people. For example, our man where we always got gasoline, he was checking on us, or people that know you will check on you. They'll remember, oh, how is that person? Or it's very good to establish relationships with service people and people in your areas. Very, very important.
Even if you don't speak Japanese, it's still, that connection is really important.
And so it's very important to be connected to your neighborhood in Japan.
We always belonged to that group, but I didn't understand how important it was then. Now I think it's very important.
The kaidanban and the taking a turn with the garbage cleaning and all the small things. But it's very important to establish relationships with
become
people.
part of the community.